Well, yesterday I went to go get my first COVID shot, and I stood in line with a lot of people and got some forms filled out and finally got a needle jabbed into my arm. And as you can guess, it didn't kill me because here I am doing a video a day later. But it provided me with an opportunity to talk, at least in a little bit, about the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Act, which is a unique statute. It's a federal law that applies to claims of injury that result from vaccine injuries. So let's talk a little bit about that. The National Vaccine Injury Compensation Act was a statute passed by Congress some years ago with the idea that it could regulate, to the degree possible, the litigation against drug companies and pharmaceutical manufacturers for vaccine-related injury. Congress set up a two-tiered system of how clients can go about litigating a claim for vaccine injury. The first type of claim is called a table case. In a table case, there is something called the National Injury Vaccine Table, and that national table illustrates what kinds of issues occur most commonly with vaccines, and to the extent that those occur, the time period that they occur in. One of the frequent complications of some vaccines, particularly seasonal flu vaccines, is a syndrome called Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's got a funny spelling, Guillane-Barre, Guillain-Barré. And Guillain-Barré syndrome usually follows an acute viral illness. For example, somebody catches the flu and has a very bad run of it. They may develop Guillain-Barré. Guillain-Barré is characterized by ascending paralysis. You lose the ability to walk, and in extreme cases, it can even go up as far as your chest and make it impossible for you to breathe. So obviously, it's the kind of thing that a person would get medical treatment for. And that medical treatment would establish a medical record that would show when the onset of symptoms were and how and to what degree the case was treated as Guillain-Barré. If you had that particular injury on the vaccine table and you had it within the period of time that is on the vaccine table, then you would have a table case. Your lawyer would submit the paperwork, including the medical records, and the National Court of Claims, or I should say the Federal Court of Claims in Washington, D.C., would decide your case. In most cases, people who have a table case are paid some form of compensation as a result. The other case, the type of case I should say, is called a cause-in-fact case. And a cause-in-fact case is simply a case where instead of being on the table, you basically present the evidence that you had this negative reaction. It's not a vaccine table injury, but it is an injury. And you have medical and expert testimony that says that your injury was directly related to the administration of the vaccine. Now, there is a caveat here. Cause-in-fact cases are very, very difficult to prevail upon. And the reason that they are is because of a ruling several years ago by the United States Supreme Court called Daubert versus Merrill Dow. Daubert versus Merrill Dow makes federal judges the gatekeepers for scientific evidence. And unless scientific evidence, particularly medical evidence, meets the standards of peer review and is backed by science, it is very rarely accepted as evidence in federal courts. That is one reason why certain types of product liability cases are more difficult to bring than others. And certain types of medical negligence cases are more difficult to bring than others in federal court because of that Daubert ruling. But Even if you have expert testimony and damages, and the lawyer presents your claim and loses, the lawyer will still get a fee for presenting your case. Even if you get no damages, your lawyer gets paid. That probably sounds unfair until you realize that if you had a close case and you had a good chance of perhaps getting some money, some damages as a result, and for whatever reason, your lawyer did not take the case because he was afraid he'd be wasting his time, he at least knows that if he does his very best, he will get compensation in some form of his attorney's fees from the National Vaccine Injury Court, or from the Federal Court of Claims in Washington, D.C. You can go online, and if you Google the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Act or the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, you can find lots of information on the website about how these cases are presented and what you need to have. You can also find the National Vaccine Injury Table on there, and that's a very useful place to look for information about vaccine injuries. If you found this interesting and helpful, I'd appreciate it if you'd smash that like button. Click on the notification bell so that you'd be notified anytime we release a video. Thank you for watching and have a terrific day.